This is Rudy.
And this is Flick.
This week, we're going to kick off talking about underappreciated, underrated deep cuts from the Pixies catalog. I think everybody knows all the big singles. We're going to talk about the stuff that's got missed, and people shouldn't be missing it.
And we should mention that this is the Pixies Styx episode. We didn't plan that. It just fell into place. It isn't it isn't an intended gimmick. It's an unintended gimmick.
It was an organic creation. So it's Pixies and it Styx this week in our Banality Draft. Rough stuff this week, but I think we're going to pull it off, and then I think we're both ready to go much easier on both you and ourselves.
And maybe we'll find the link somehow. Maybe it's some proggy elements to both of them. Sure enough.
Yeah, that's a real insult to the Pixies, but
Yeah, I know, and I take it back.
you should. You should. I mean, again, when we make the topic that they're underappreciated, and then to wonder about a theoretical connection between them and Styx is insult on injury. But
It's a Hail Mary attempt to make people stay for the end.
all right, well, we're going to figure it out. We're definitely going to figure it out. It's hard to say that the Pixies themselves are underrated at this point. I think history has been very kind to them. I think that it's one of those alt bands from the '80s that the kids, young people really listen to and are go out of their way to listen to. So I think the history of the Pixies will be very, very favorable. But there's huge swaths of the catalog that I really think are slept on and missed. So we should have no problem filling a list of at least 10. I think we're going to 12 today. Underappreciated Pixie songs. I think you go first.
Okay. All right. Well, my first one is a B-side from the Doolittle era. It's the B-side, or one of the B-sides to Here Comes Your Man. They had so much material at that point that they didn't just have one B-side. They had, they were putting out basically EPs for those import singles. And it's Kim Deal's song "Into the White" because I just feel like the one thing about the Pixies, and there aren't many complaints, especially in this era, the Doolittle era of the Pixies, but I think you can always have a little bit more Kim Deal.
Yep, this is one of those records where it's I if you look up where it sits in their catalog, they don't have an album called like Greatest Hits. The Pixies don't have a Greatest Hits album per se, but they do have a best of. And Into the White is like the definition of the distinction there. Like it is definitely one of the best of the Pixies, but it is not one of their greatest hits. It's not like I don't again. I never got to see them. I don't know how often they performed it. I don't know whether it was a big sing along moment, but I have a feeling that like Gigantic probably is Kim Deal's biggest sing
Oh
along
yeah,
by far.
I think it was that was the biggest sing along moment for the band. And Into the White, they didn't break that out too often. I saw them when they reunited. They did their first show at the Fine Line in Minneapolis. I was there for that, and they did break it out for that.
I don't see there's any way if you're making a career spanning playlist of the Pixies, I think Into the White has to be there. I'd
Yeah,
be it's got to be a consensus pick, I would think.
yeah, it's not much lyrically, but it's really all about the music. And again, I think more Kim Deal was just needed.
Without
It,
doubt, I agree more Kim Deal. I would make that case for almost every one of their records. Again, the fact that they have the amount of material at that time, I think for almost any other period, I think Into the White gets on the album.
yeah, and I think you'll see from my list that Doolittle probably could have been a pretty effective double album. It's a pretty unimpeachable single album. I think it could have been a classic double album if they would have gone that route. Of course, a band like the Pixies at that time probably didn't have the sort of clout needed to pull that kind of a deal. But
Well, I mean, what bossa nova is missing, if we're going to be critical of it, which I don't want to be critical because I love it, like I love a lot of the Pixies records, but that might have been like your Physical Graffiti record then, sort of the leftovers from Doolittle plus the current studio stuff they had. That could have been either a much tighter, much more beloved single album, or could have been that sort of Physical Graffiti type record, which they never made. Not that they were obligated to, but Physical Graffiti was a place to park songs that were good enough to be, their song, Led Zeppelin songs. They just didn't have a place. And I don't know. I think like Into the White could have been how much differently I would think about it if it had been on Bossa Nova.
yeah, or they could have had another album in between those two.
Right, or even an EP. Think
Yeah.
of like a Come On Pilgrim style EP, which I think is like 6 songs or 7 songs or whatever it is.
Well, that they practically did have with the import singles. They practically did have a couple of EPs there.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, Into the White, strong pick, totally in agreement. Think it's fundamental. I am. I'm just going to telegraph. My first 2 picks come from Trompe Le Monde, and it's not an accident. I consider Trompe Le Monde to be like the most underappreciated Pixies album, and I understand why people gravitate to Surfer Rosa or Doolittle over it, but I really love the record. It's not maybe the best Pixies album, but it is probably my favorite. It's certainly the one I listen to most often, and I think Alec Eiffel from that record is one of their most underappreciated songs. It absolutely is a pop song. It's in the pop idiom. I think shows the strength of Black Francis' ability to write a pop song, but it's weird. It's off. They take these phrases which are very melodic and very easily digested, and then they sort of move the beat that they play them on. They take the cycle of the song and they just won't let you enjoy it as a straight pop song. It's like written in a again, I wish I knew formal music theory. I know there's probably a very simple way of explaining it, but they're taking these musical phrases and dropping them in different places within the flow of the song, which is so mutated and so Frank Black. It's so Pixies. And I must throw in again and say the fact that Eric Drew Feldman from Captain Beefheart's band plays that keyboard solo at the end of that record. That is one of the most beautifully. It's a very strange little pattern. It's not heavy on repetition. It's sort of a long statement, but it's still hooky and it's still a pop rock like solo. It's a standard rock solo. It's just done just strangely enough to be genuinely interesting. I never tire of it. It's among the first things I always go to when I think of listening to the Pixies. I just love the song, and I think the last 90 seconds of Alec Eiffel are the best thing the Pixies ever did.
Well, it is a really good song. I think the thing about Trompe Le Monde, and it's kind of staying on the same point, that musicians are coming in to help with things like that. It is a bit less of a Pixies album per se. It is more Frank Black or Black Francis going his own way a little bit from the band, and maybe like the first unofficial solo album for him.
Yeah, I don't know. Is that the only album they recorded it in L.A.?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I mean, they weren't home. None of them that I knew. I think at the time, I don't think any of them were L.A. residents. They were out in L.A. together. You know what I mean? All they saw was each other. Yeah, it was definitely a Frank Black record. I mean, I don't know enough about the history of the record to know, is that because Kim Deal was sort of winding down her contribution, or is it because Frank Black was being overbearing? I've never heard or read or understood, but again, to me, Kim Deal, there could be more Kim Deal on any of those records, and I would bet they'd be better.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they were just less of a unit at that time, and he was calling more of the shots, and it was less of a product of the band. And it isn't to say that it's not good in its own right, because I like his solo stuff just fine. But it does, that album certainly has a different feel to it than the other ones.
Yeah, I think that's what makes it so interesting, is that it showed yes, I don't actually think it fits as easily in the Black catalog as I do think it fits in the Pixies catalog.
Yeah, it's an in-betweener. But it is the contributions are less from the rest of the band at that point, though.
This is true. It's still a hell of a song.
Yeah. Okay, since you went with an album track, and a couple of that I thought about putting on my list, and I'll just mention them now. That were kind of along the lines of Alkyphel. That they're kind of big songs, but they're maybe still underappreciated, just because like they're the songs that we put up there at the very top, or at least the top 10, but maybe don't necessarily get thought of that way. I considered putting Valoria and Caribou on my list because I think they're among the very best Pixies songs, and maybe get a bit overlooked. But I wasn't sure if they were quite overlooked enough to make my list, so I did bypass them. But another album track that I think is kind of quintessential Pixies, that is actually from Doolittle, and yeah, I think it is possible to have a song on Doolittle that does get overlooked or underappreciated, and that is Mr. Greaves. It hits all of the points, all of the Pixie points. And by the way, a little sidebar here. Um, I know there's somebody out there that's probably, anytime we say the Pixies, probably is just like, no, it's Pixies.
Yeah.
I have plenty of recorded proof that the band referred to themselves as the Pixies just as often or more often than just Pixies. So I'm just going to put that out there early so that somebody isn't like keeping score on that. Uh,
You're right. It's a shame we have to do such things, but I affirm your decision, sir.
okay, but Mr. Greaves hits all the points. It's a bit of the loud, quiet, loud thing, the changing the tempos. Uh, it has death. Mr. Greaves, I think, is kind of a Mr. or a Grim Reaper sort of character. And it, like a lot of songs, has kind of an aquatic theme. It takes place near a body of water, and the ocean, as a lot of these songs do. And the changing tempo thing and the loud, quiet, loud thing that the Pixies did. I was thinking about it a bit this week, and I don't know the Beatles to be like hugely to have inspired the Pixies hugely. But really, if you think back to songs like "Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds" and "We Can Work It Out," those songs kind of are. There's a bridge between the Beatles and the Pixies with those songs. It really kind of is a similar principle.
Yeah, I don't think I've never read any interview where they were particularly felt like they owed the Beatles, but I see your point. I absolutely see your point. I think Mr. Greaves is it's sort of a warm sounding record. Like, it is loud, quiet, loud, but it's also very organic and acoustic in its own way. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, they definitely were able to bring the loud, quiet, loud is not just a gimmick or turning the volume knob like in the
Right.
most literal sense. And I think it does show a wrinkle and a nuance to that dynamic that not too many else of their records really did. So absolutely is as Pixies a record as they come, and over time, it's one of those things that I never feel tired of listening to it. I think the intro is a little long, but the whole song's less than 2 minutes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Which they were great at too.
It's compact Pixies. It really it's kind of a microcosm of them. I really I don't know. To me, it's just that's as Pixies of a song as any song that I know of. But it isn't really. It's not thought of. I feel like it's not thought of in their top 20 by most people. It's just really
Right.
overlooked, I think.
Do you see any connection between Minutemen and Pixies? Because in just thinking about it and thinking about Mr. Greaves, I sort of do. The Minutemen were always, they wrote these short songs and they said, well, we just wanted to include the good parts. Be like,
Hmm.
we weren't going to repeat a bunch of stuff. We wanted to just state the good parts and then move on to a new song. There's a little of that here. There's a little of that with Mr. Greaves. In fact, Doolittle has a little of that. Uh,
Yeah.
it has those moments, a couple short songs that are just they're just the good parts. It's definitely just the good parts.
Yeah. Well, and it is it's kind of like for as short of a song as it is, it could easily be like five songs smashed together.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, and that would be the other Beatles connection. Is Paul McCartney had all those great montage songs. Band on the Run is my favorite, which is not technically Beatles, but the whole what is it? The whole second side of Abbey Road, I think, was
Yeah.
basically also. He really had a gift for that. So maybe I bet if you asked him, he wouldn't diss the Beatles. Frank Black's not going to diss the Beatles. He loves
No.
pop. He loves pop songs too
I
much.
if he did, I think I would lose respect for him, I have to
Yeah,
say.
I don't think
And
he
that would be
would.
hard to do.
All right, a pick from Doolittle. Glad you picked it because it takes the pressure off me needing to talk about Doolittle, making sure it's getting properly represented. And of course, then it frees up more time for me to talk about Trump Le Monde. So I will get it out of the way. My second song is Bird Dream of the Olympus Mons. It's one of these just it's from outer space. I love the title. I think it's fantastic. This record isn't loud, quiet, loud. It's quiet, loud, and it's not all that loud. I don't know how many more records they had that were much more quiet than this, but it builds up a head of steam, and by the time it ends, it definitely ends way louder than it started. I think it's a gem in their catalog, and it's underappreciated. I feel that the Pixies are underrated as a band to sing along to, and I think if you give this one a try, you will find it is among the most fun songs in the Pixies catalog to sing along to. It's just a great. It just it feels good to sing and it feels good to listen to, and I really dig it. And I think I think it has a place in almost any Pixies playlist as to show that they were capable of the tempo change, that they weren't dependent on just the loud, quiet, loud gimmick. They had way more going for them, and it's as good example of that depth as anything.
Well, and I should say, like that's kind of why I mentioned we can work it out because uh, that's really the tempo change, and that's the connection I'm seeing there. Like
Yeah,
I think the loud, quiet, loud thing is just as dependent on the tempo changes as it is about actually loud, quiet, loud. Like that's the term, but I think it really the tempo change is maybe even um, a bigger component of that than the actual volume change.
right. He was a master of that, and I would love to know if those really were a bunch of different songs that just got stuck together, or if it really comes out of his brain that way.
Yeah, that is an interesting thing to explore.
I'm gonna write him a note. He doesn't seem like that. If he was a dick in the past, he doesn't seem like he's that big of a dick these days. Maybe he'll reply. We'll see.
Yeah, give it a shot.
All
All
right, I
right.
got it out of my system. No more Trump Lamond. We carry on.
But I will carry on with Doolittle. So Doolittle, I should say, is where I came to the Pixies. That was the first Pixies album I owned, and it's really only grown, and my love of it has only grown over time, and that includes the B sides. And looking at the B sides on my list, I feel like Doolittle could have just as much been a classic double album as it was a just extraordinary, unimpeachable single album. With that in mind, my next pick is another one of the B sides from that era, Manta Ray.
Which B side was it? Which single was that on? Was
I
that
knew
an?
you're. I knew
Go
you're
ahead.
going to. I
Go.
believe it.
Yeah.
I believe it's Monkey Gone to Heaven, but I gotta go back and look that up.
I only ask because I agree with the pick, and I'm wondering, could I wonder if there's a way to get a consensus on which Pixies EP is best?
Hmm.
Depending on which EP this is on, I have a feeling whatever this one is on, because it's from the Doolittle era, probably has to win. I can't admit the
Well,
only argument might be is if you consider "Come On Pilgrim" an EP.
yeah, Come On Pilgrim really is an EP. So yeah, that's question one. The other question. This indeed was on Monkey Gun to Heaven. The UK 12-inch version, 12-inch slash CD single version of Monkey Gun to Heaven had, of course, the title track, Manta Ray, Weird at School, and Dancing the Manta Ray.
Oh, that's their best EP then. And I can't say.
Well,
I mean, I
let's
love
take a look at
instrumentally, yeah, for sure.
let's take a look at Here Comes Your Man. You might be taking this back. Okay, Here Comes Your Man has Wave of Mutilation, UK Surf,
Ooh.
Into the White, and
Oh,
and Bailey's Walk.
oh my God! Can you imagine recording an album where you have all these songs that don't fit?
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. I might have to eat that. Although I have to go back to your comment about the double album. This what really makes me angry is Bossa Nova should have been a masterpiece. Bossa Nova should have been these EP cuts plus the best of Bossa Nova. It's Bossa Nova is the album that should have been is the letdown then.
Well, or they could have held on to these for an album in between there. They could have easily put an album in between Doolittle and Bossa Nova.
Yeah. Oh yeah. All right. Well, maybe yeah, we're not going to come back to a topic of just their best EPs. Doolittle produced their best EPs. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty intense. Well, we'll have a chance to talk about this in a little bit. That's all I can say. For now, I approve, sir, of Manta Ray. I am going, while I have just dissed Bossa Nova, I am going to, I actually really didn't diss it. I'm not capable of dissing Bossa Nova because I don't think you can say you love the Pixies if you don't like Bossa Nova. In fact, the only Pixies albums you're allowed to dislike if you're a Pixies fans are the reunion albums. That's just my humble opinion. I'm going to pick Javelina from this record, and I'm picking it because I think it has its fans. I think it's beloved by some, but I think people think of it as a novelty record, and it really bothers me. I can't decide if that's in part because They Might Be Giants did covered Javelina on there was a tribute album to them, and I think They Might Be Giants are often thought of as a novelty act unfairly. Javelina isn't a novelty record. It really is a part of the consistent theme in their career of riffing on the old Exotica records. And again, I'm not an expert on the Exotica stuff, but there was this time during the early '90s, right around this time, where all the old all the record companies were putting up these compilations of like Cocktail Culture and Hyper Lounge and all that other stuff, and a lot of Exotica records were on those compilations. And they sold a ton of those. Capitol Records sold a ton of their Exotica collections back then, and Esquivel records all started to get reissued. There is that flavor of music is baked into every Pixies record in one way or another. And the outer space references and the aquatic references are things people think about, but I really think that more than Frank Black, it wasn't just Frank Black. I think all of them had some respect or love for the old 50s and 60s Exotica records, and I think they loved playing that those types of styles, and I don't think they ever did it better than on Javelina. It's not a novelty record. It really is. It's as musically important, I think, as anything else they did. It's just a different flavor of it. That would be my read.
Yeah, it's a good. It's well put. It is a side of the Pixies, or at least a side of Francis. I think there's definitely something there. Also, I think there's a strong link between him and your Jonathan Richman and your Gordon Gano and your They Might Be Giants. I think there's definitely something that they all have in common, that they all sort of drink the same water on.
Yeah, I mean, I never made the connection. Like Bossa Nova again is a backwards looking. You can't make a case that this album was released around the time of a Bossa Nova revival craze. Like it's part of his backward looking aesthetic. You know that there's a certain veneer to and darkness in the way he looks back of I don't know how to I don't even know exactly I don't even know what principle binds all of those things other than him. But I feel like Bossa Nova in general and Javelina in specific really are a pure statement of one of the lines of thought that holds the Pixies catalog together.
Yeah, good pick. Okay, so I think next, I of course am a big Neil Young fan. So my next one is I think a very good selection for a cover. They covered Neil Young's Winter Long on the Bridge tribute album in 1990, an album that I should mention also included Dinosaur Jr., The Flaming Lips, Soul Asylum, and Sonic Youth. Um, this is really like one of the greatest assemblages of alternative or indie rock or whatever you want to call it,
Yeah, yeah,
heavyweights, and a lot of them really before anybody, before they were on a lot of people's radars. They were on this album in 1990 doing Neil Young songs. And Winter Long is, I think, a very underrated Neil Young song. It's not on one of his big albums or anything. It was actually on the Decade compilation, and a good choice. I remember that I read in an interview somewhere that again, it's hard to talk about Frank Black slash Black Francis because you don't know what to call him on any particular day.
yeah.
But anyway, I guess as Frank Black or Black Francis or Charles Thompson, he used to listen to Winter Long every day for like a year or two, and that's why they covered that song for the Bridge tribute.
It was made for them in a lot of ways, and as I think we've both professed our Kim Deal respect.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think of this as while I appreciate that Frank Black had that connection with the song, like her delivery here. I don't know if she's a big Neil Young fan. If she just did that naively, if she just sort of naively just did that counterpoint as beautifully as she did, then she's even better than I thought. It
Well,
really it was just their performance together is pretty good.
yeah, it is naturally suited to her vocals, and yeah, that's the thing about Kim Deal having Kim Deal as backing vocalist. It just kind of it turns everything into candy. Really, it is kind of it's weird to think about what some of these songs, some of these other Pixie songs, as dark as they get at times, what they would be like without her backing vocals, because that is an interesting counterpoint thematically. I think is just the way that she sweetens everything with her vocals.
Yeah, I wonder why if Frank Black was sort of had a controlling impulse. Why allow her the freedom on this one? I'm not sure how the song came about, but I just her vocal performance is so prominent in the mix. It's so prominent as a statement, and it's that doesn't come from Neil. Like that, Neil does do beautiful harmonies on Winter Long. Like it's one of my favorite like records for his harmony, but he harmonizes with himself. I think on that
Yeah.
record.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I can't think of a Pixies record where Frank Black tried to build a wall of sound out of his own voice. I don't think he would have thought of himself as able to do that. And why would you do that when you have such an incredible angelic voice as hers? So it really does. It's one of the most pure statements of them vocalizing together, and it may not be the best of it. Um, but I would say like it's cooperating. I think the most haunting interaction between their voices is the intro to "Where Is My Mind," but it's haunting because Frank Black's introduction is to tell her to stop. You know what I mean? Like it's you know what I mean? Like he's literally telling her to stop. Like that's a great moment for the two of them, but it's not like them working together. And I can't think of another instance where they really pulled it off quite as well as on Winterlong.
Yeah, it does. You hear the way they sound together on this song, and you don't know why they would ever not want to work together just because they can do that.
I approve. It is. I'm not sure I remember that album as being as great as the lineup. I can't remember. I don't go. I haven't gone back and listened to anything on that record but the Pixies Winter Long. You know what I mean?
And
Like,
and by the way, I just want to go back because I have this up now. I totally forgot Nick Cave's also on this.
mm,
Victoria Williams was on it. Uh, yeah, I mean it is thoroughly an amazing lineup that they had there.
that is a hell of a lineup.
And I think a lot of it was foresight. A lot of these bands maybe didn't put out their best stuff at this point yet.
Well, I almost picked, but I didn't. The Pixie song from um, the Warren Zevon tribute, which was called, I think, "Enjoy Every Sandwich."
Yeah, that's right.
Their cover on that, I'm trying to remember now exactly what it was. I have to look it up. That shows how. The minute I have to recite the name, I forget it. Of course, "Ain't That Pretty at All." I thought
Yeah,
their contribution to that record was pretty good. In fact, I would say that's the best reunion song from since they're during their reunion.
yeah. Well, I have one on my list that I might like a little bit better. But we'll save that for later. This you're right though. This was a very good one.
Yeah, that's my honorary pick. I wish I could have included it, but Winterlong is their best cover. You got it. I didn't, so I'm gonna pick "Build High." Also a B side. Um, Another one of these records I think people are tempted to think of as just a slight or a throwaway or maybe a goof on country music. I just don't get that feeling. It's if you're making a playlist of Pixie songs and you grab any chunk from a record where you get two, three, four songs in a row from a record and you need to transition in and out of it, it's these records that's when you come to appreciate weird little records like Build High, which also has some I believe has some duet between uh, Kim Deal and Frank Black. I mean, it's heavy, a little heavier for Frank Black, but it's just a little slice of country weirdness. They didn't really work a ton in that idiom, or at least I don't think they did. But They didn't really
It's
need to do too much after this, to be
it,
honest.
it's their hot dog.
Right. Only hot dog, I don't think is as good. I don't think hot dog is. You could say that Led Zeppelin was sort of taking a break, but you can't
Yeah.
say that about Build High because it's just as weird and just you know crusted over in weirdness as every other thing in the catalog. It is 100% Pixies, even though it's kind of a country record. So again, it's a little love note to what they were able to do. So I include Build High from the B-side compilation.
Yeah, well, and another thing we know from Frank Black's solo career is that he was very heavily into country music. Um, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
so yeah, that was definitely in the mix. Not as much on the surface, at least in the Pixies catalog.
It's they didn't need to go back to it. I think they said what they needed to say and they moved on, and I'm glad they did.
Okay, so my next pick, I'm just gonna make it a two for Tuesday here on Neil Young covers that they did, and I maybe this was also maybe this was like an alternate take for what they might have put on the bridge. I'm not exactly sure why there's more than one Neil Young cover in their catalog, but as a big Neil Young fan, I'm glad that that is somebody that that they double dipped on, and that is "I've Been Waiting," which was included as a B-side on the Valoria single, and another Kim Deal vocal. And another thing about this. So this is a song that was later covered by David Bowie, and I feel like I should give a lot of the credit to the Pixies for the David Bowie cover that came along years later, because he was a very big fan of the Pixies or Pixies, however you want however you want to put it. But
However, David Bowie said that I would be good enough for me.
but I'm sure he knew he was covering a Neil Young song and went to the source and everything. But I can't believe that the Pixies didn't play a part in his song selection when he did it.
Yeah, I'm almost tempted to say it's better than Valoria, but they're not comparable because one's a cover and one isn't. I think it sounds beautiful. I think of all the, you can instantly identify its era of origin. Like it's. I think it had to have been recorded around the same time as Bossa Nova or the general range. I hope I'm
Yeah.
right about that. If not, then I brain
Well,
donkey. But
it was released in 1990, so yeah. I mean, it's on the blur. And I want to say, since you since you said about since you just mentioned that something might be better than Valoria, I put Valoria way at the top. Definitely a top 10 Pixie song.
really,
It's maybe their best guitar riff. It's definitely one of Joey Santiago's best guitar riffs.
it's a great record in any band's catalog. It has a lot of competition uh,
Yeah.
in their catalog. I don't know if I can go top 10. I didn't mean to diss it, but I've
Well,
been
but
waiting.
but since you did,
Yeah, I mean, I guess I did. I've been waiting for you. It's really like a pure statement of their sound from that era, even though it's not their song.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I definitely can see why this wasn't on my list because I wouldn't have done two Neil Young covers like you would,
Yeah.
which is
Oh, yeah,
yeah, I
guilty.
understand. Neil Young, I will say this too. Neil Young covers are a cottage industry. There are so many of them, and tons of them are dreadful.
Yeah.
The fact that theirs are both great,
Hmm.
um, again, is just one more bit of proof. Not that more was needed. At just how good they were at their job.
Yeah. Yeah, and as far as the bridge goes, as far as that album goes, I to me the Pixies version of Winter Long was always the best thing on that. Um, I do want to go back to Valoria though too, because not only is it some of Joey Santiago's best work, but but I think maybe Kim Deal's best backing vocal when she does the VELOURIA. It's just it's all great. It's such a it's an essential Pixie song.
I will attribute that to a matter of taste. It's great. It's a single. It's worthy of being a single. It stands out on that record, on on Bossa Nova, but I don't know if it's in the top 10 best things. I think we may have to. I will take a rain check, sir. I will listen
Yeah,
to it
okay.
with great intensity this week, but I don't know that I'm going to come back with anything different than I already had.
Yeah, since this doesn't officially make the list for this show, we should put it on the what we're listening to list or something.
For sure.
We got to put Valoria on one of our lists because it isn't technically on our B sides or deep cuts and underappreciated cuts.
Yeah. I can't be justified as an underappreciated cut, I don't think. Maybe
Well,
only by
apparently
me.
it is
Only by
underappreciated.
me. Only
I think you've illustrated the fact that it might be.
only by me. Uh, all right, I will accept the two Neil Young covers as being very welcome. I don't think I think it's very defendable, and it's you don't have to be a Neil Homer, so I feel you. I am being a little bit of a hypocrite here. I'm being a little bit uh, I'm it's a little dishonest. I don't go listen to the new Pixies records all that much. I don't I don't think Indie Cindy is a good album. I it has some moments on it. I think they're getting better and I like the new one a lot and I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt and I picked Bird of Prey from the new record as one which I think all of their new I can't make a case that Indie Cindy is underappreciated. I don't think it's appreciated generally and I'm not sure it's worthy of it. But I do think the new one is pretty good. Like if this was their first record, I think people would be like, "Hey, that's a band to watch." Like, or "Hey, that's different. There's something different there." Like, there's enough on that I think the whole album is underappreciated, and I don't I like the Pixies. I don't have to like every song because I like them. I think if you give them the benefit of the doubt and you give it a try, I think some of the stuff on the most recent record will jump out at you. I haven't spent enough time with it to know like is 5 years from now I'm going to be tired of it. Is it really going to hold up to like long term listening? I don't know the answer, but I suspect some of it will. I probably could have picked a couple other different songs from it, but Bird of Prey from I don't even know how to pronounce the name of the new record. Somebody needs to come up with a word for when you're a fan of something but you've only read about it. Like there are artists and bands and I don't know how to pronounce their name, but I would tell you I love them. You know what I'm saying? I don't even know how to
Mhm.
pronounce the name of the album, but I do like it of all the reunion albums, and I think it underappreciated will be one of the words used to describe it.
All right. Well, so since you mentioned Indie Cindy, or I shouldn't say since you because I did already have this on my list, but it's maybe fortuitous. It's a good segue that you did mention Indie Cindy because I do have a song here from that.
Hmm.
I think I think it was easy to write off Indie Cindy, and I don't it wasn't an album I loved at all, and I'm not saying you really got to go back and listen to Indie Cindy, but I think it, probably a lot of people just completely wrote that off as there's nothing there to nothing here to look at. But I really like the song Greens and Blues from that album, and I think it's also interesting that the story on that song is that Frank Black Francis, Charles Thompson wanted to come up with a new gigantic. He wanted something that kind of took the place of gigantic, and I don't know, maybe it's the romantic view of things, that we all want to have. And we hear a story like that, and we probably think, okay, yeah, that never leads to success. Uh, Here's a case where I think it did. I think it led to a good song. I'm not saying, this is the answer to Gigantic. It's not. But it is good enough to make my list. It's a good song. It's probably one you overlooked and should go back and take another look at.
I definitely will because I do think I'm one of the people who just sort of gave up on it. What and it's I don't know what happened to it, but the first song of their reunion was called like
Bamtlock?
yeah, Bam Thwok. That was terrible, in my opinion. In my
Uh,
humble,
I would say it's not great. I don't say terrible either. It's, you know, it actually, I listened to it a bit when that was a new song, because I was excited about the reunion. It didn't really stay with me much after that, but I did like it enough to listen to for a while.
I just felt like it was an anticlimax. Maybe I expected too much, but I think
Hmm.
once it came out and I didn't feel the old magic, I do think I probably tuned out to Indie Cindy no matter what was on it.
Hmm.
I will go back and I will try to right that wrong. That is
Yeah,
probably grossly unfair.
yeah, and again, I'm not making the case for the entire album, but Greens and Blues I think is a worthy it's a worthy one for any Pixies compilation that you're making. Um, As is, I got to go back to the one that you mentioned that isn't on either of our lists, but maybe should be, and that's "Ain't That Pretty at All." That is a really good track. It's one I think I kind of forgot about, but need to go back to.
Yeah, well, I mean, each. I think I still have a pick, if I'm not mistaken. Hold on, I do, because you went into the white. You picked first. I could slot it in here and make a fantastic playlist. You know what? I am going to do that because I believe it is underappreciated. It is perhaps more underappreciated. But since we've already talked about it, that's going to be the trade I'm going to ask you to make. I'm I'm going to include it as my pick, but I had to knock out my number 6 pick to put it in there. I just want to go back. We've already talked about it, or the name of it has already come up. I just want to throw in a little love for Weird at My School.
Okay.
Uh, again, not, hearing which EP it's on and hearing that it's on with Manta Ray and Dance the Manta Ray. I never bought that EP. I never had that on vinyl. I don't know if it's like a double 7 inch or if it's a 12 inch, but like flipping over the record and having Dance the Manta Ray and Weird at My School, like I don't think that those two together are even 4 minutes long. I'd be surprised if they're much more than 3 minutes long. That's a pretty potent little flip side of an EP. So while I'm gonna put in the song from the tribute record "Ain't That Pretty at All," which the Pixies recorded, the Warren Zevon tribute, that's gonna be my final song. I had to at least get in and mention "Weird at My School." This is. I think when we talked about it earlier, I said it's my favorite thing they've recorded since they got back together. Maybe that's a slight overstatement, but not dramatically so. It's certainly among the best things they've done since getting back together.
Yeah, I agree.
Now,
And also, that's when Kim was still with them too. So
yeah,
it
I
carries a
oh,
little bit more weight that way.
it's definitely quality. This is not a bad little list. I'm asking everyone to indulge my Trump Le Monde because I have three from that era. But Into the White, Alec Eiffel, Mr. Greaves, Bird Dream of Olympus Mons, Manta Ray Javelina, Winter Long, Build High, I've Been Waiting for You, Bird of Prey, Greens and Blues, and Ain't That Pretty at All. Boy, if that's a pretty good playlist. I think any band who has that much material and that could be called underappreciated, it goes to show how great the Pixies really were.
Yeah, exactly. Just about any band would love to have that as their greatest hits, I would say.
It's quality from end to end, and I bet if pressed, we could have gone to 20 easy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't, and I expect with time, maybe more of their recent material will find its way because there's no way you could call any of that overappreciated. All of it is eligible for uh,
Yeah.
an underappreciated playlist. So, yay on the Pixies. I still have never seen them. I'm not sure if this is going to be the time. I'm sure I'll regret not seeing them. But if I didn't get to see them in their prime, and that's what I would have wanted, So.
Yeah, I didn't get to see them in their prime either. I have seen them 3 times in all, though. The best definitely being when they first reunited and seeing them at the Fine Line in Minneapolis. That was a very, very cool show to see, especially because that being their kickoff and a club show to kick off a tour. They were digging out all of the rarities. They did play Winter Long and Into the White and In Heaven, um, and a bunch more that I don't even come to mind right now. But it was a very long set where they tried out a lot of stuff that I don't know how much of it ended up being in their sets later on, but they're just trying out just about everything.
Are they still playing huge arenas in Europe?
I don't know. Let me see if I have anything here.
That might be the only way I'd go see them at this point is to because that would be a really strange experience to be in with like whatever 30,000 people
Hmm.
singing along to Pixie songs because I don't could you get 30,000 people in America total who could sing along to every song in a Pixie song?
Yeah, I don't know. They did play some fairly big rooms in the big cities. I saw them. One of the shows I saw them at was, well, we're not talking about too big of a. We're not talking about the 30,000 seat. I think the biggest venue I saw them play was probably the Aragon in Chicago. Other than I guess Riot Fest would be more people.
Yeah, I can't imagine them filling Soldier Field.
No, only in our fantasy realm.
One day, sir, one day.
Okay, well, I guess that's it, right? We're gonna come back and draft
Well,
some
we have
sticks.
Pixies. Yes, it's Pixie Sticks time. It is
We
time
got the
for
Pixies.
we have the Pixies, and sadly for us all, we have the Styx. This was very rough, and this is like stare not too long into the abyss, yet lest you become the abyss. Like
And
have to come back from the ledge after this because this was rough.
yeah, so we'll come back to the abyss in a short moment.
Tonight, I am in Chicago. I
Oh,
am in Chicago, Illinois, which is just serendipitous. It's totally accidental that
yeah.
1 week
As,
ago, yeah,
it's all serendipitous. I mean, first there was the fact that we ended up just having the Pixies and Sticks.
yeah, I may have to go buy a lotto ticket. We'll see how this goes. I am in the city of Chicago. Chicago has a great musical history, but I think what goes unsaid is that it's primarily the black artists from Chicago that Chicago should be proud of. If you think of the white bands that have come out of Chicago, it's among the worst music made in this country.
Okay,
The
well,
band,
if you're going to say that, then we are considering a Cheap Trick to not be a Chicago band, then,
but
right?
definitely
Because
not. They are
okay,
definitely not. And I would include REO Speedwagon as a Chicago band because while they're from Champaign, I believe they really made their name in Chicago. So you have REO Speedwagon, you have Survivor, you have Chicago, and you have Styx. You really can't find a more repulsive group of bands in one place at one time. Like they were all sort of hitting their stride at the same. Like mid
Yeah.
70s, late 70s. And I was living here in Chicago. This is where I was born, and I lived here till I was 13 years old. And as I was preparing for this list, it dawned on me that I basically had to suffer the entire career of the original, sort of run of Styx. They broke up like 83, 84, right when I left Chicago. So I had my nostrils filled with this trash literally almost since I was conscious. And growing up here in Chicago back then, like if you had said something bad about Styx, like people probably would have wanted to fight you. The meathead imbeciles of Chicago of that time would have defended Styx in Chicago. So to come back, be here in the Windy City and talking about Styx, everything comes full circle. Everything happens for a reason. I want to know what the reason is for Styx existence, and perhaps
Oh,
this very list will show me the way.
oh, that's one of their song titles. Well, you did mention the four horse bands of the apocalypse, so
That's right. That's right.
hopefully it isn't like a dark fate for you.
That's true. That is true. You go first. Like I think when we talked about this before, we both agreed there really is only one song on the board that has any chance of not inducing the gag reflex.
Yeah.
I think we both will say it's the same one, but I'm open for a surprise. You go first. I'm desperate to know, are we both thinking the same thing?
I'm gonna guess we are, but I'm dying to know as well. I'm anxious to find out. Uh, but my inevitable number one pick in this is the only song that I can say is really tolerable in this catalog to me, and that's Renegade.
Oh my goodness. Oh no, that's not my one.
That's not your one,
But it's
okay?
on my list. You're really hosing me by taking this. But that's not my one. Okay, great. Then okay.
Yeah.
This is liberating. Although not
Well,
really.
yeah, and I should say it has the drama. It has the drama of a lot of their songs. It's I think decidedly less cheesy. It I don't think there's a single song in their catalog that doesn't have a substantial element of cheese to it. But Renegade, I think you can take a little bit more seriously than the rest of them.
Wow, I don't even know where to start. I don't know where to start. I mean, Tommy Shaw, um, boy, this really blows up everything I was prepared for. Because to me, from a strategic point of view, it's the Tommy Shaw stuff that really we're all dancing around here. Like the supply of tolerable Tommy Shaw is not that great either. Like this is a band with two songwriters, actually three, I think, by the time they were done. You have the Dennis DeYoung stuff, and you have the Tommy Shaw stuff. And oh my goodness, you pick Renegade right off the bat. I think that's by far the most listened to song on Spotify. It
Yeah,
is.
because it's the one that holds
It's
up maybe a little bit.
no. It's a Bohemian Rhapsody ripoff. It's
Well, most of their songs are rip-offs, I would say, but yeah, ripping off Bohemian Rhapsody is probably a better way to go than ripping off Carnival 9.
I
Well,
guess.
actually, that's probably a better ripoff than most of the ripoffs that they did.
I mean, Tommy Shaw
Tommy Jaw.
should be Tommy Shaw should be standing on the
that's
gallows for his life,
that's
but it's
that's like
because.
that's
Go ahead.
like that's like in that Goodfellas scene. That's one of those characters that did come up. Tommy Jaw.
Tommy Shaw. Old Tommy Shaw. He should. I don't. I don't think the Hangman. I think they should track him down and just hang him. And it like to me, the story never made sense. It was always a
No.
chintz ripoff of Bohemian Rhapsody. Tommy Shaw is guilty of lots of stuff, and it's mostly low grade shit like the song Renegade that I think make him eligible for a neck stretching.
It's not the field I'm going to die on by any stretch. but I would say no. To me, it's the standout track to this.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, then the fact that I guessed so incorrectly means that this is going to be nothing but an ordeal for you. Because I thought the only possible choice, and even then was a nudge, nudge, wink, wink, is "Come Sail Away."
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't
you
know.
know what? If I would have had any inkling that was the way you're going to go, I probably would have strategically gone with "Come Sail Away" because that was my number two. So we were in somewhat of an agreement there.
All
But
right.
yeah, it's still yes, a nudge, nudge, wink, wink, indeed.
I mean, if I don't want to get too heavy for the kids these days. I know that the millennials are in their feelings. They're very much feeling ripped off by previous generations, and to some degree they have a point. But I do think they need to go back and really pay attention to the lyrics of "Come Sail Away," because I I think the lyrics here really do speak to the sort of the millennial angst. Somehow we missed out on the pot of gold, but we'll try best as we can to carry on. And they get on the ship and they go to space because the Earth is uninhabitable. So they're like, basically, it's this that alienation of our planet is trashed, man. Like I did, we missed the pot of gold. All the good stuff was
Mm.
gone by the time we came along, and the only real answer is just get off this crazy planet, man. Like that warmed over '70s bullshit really has become sort of like frontline, or I'm sorry, front page news again. So "Come Sail Away," this sort of fantasy of ecological disaster, sending new pioneers out into space, in starships instead of boats. Like, it's just, you had to be stoned to like it. There had to be a strobe light on. Like, it had to be the '70s. It's really dreadful, but it sort of cross generations lyrically, and the kids love the weird old analog synthesizers, and you're not going to find too much better in the weird analog synthesizer department than "Come Sail Away."
Okay, so the prophet Dynasty Young in his telling of the coming of the end of the earth.
Are you telling? No, just go back and read the lyrics. I guarantee you will see what I am talking about.
Yeah, well, you have a point, I guess.
Not enough of a point. Just remember, this record, The Grand Illusion, that has "Come Sail Away" on it, came out in 1977. If you ever wondered why punk was necessary, understand that in 1977, the year that punk broke here with the Sex Pistols, I know '76 is where they started, but Styx was putting shit into the world, like literally hooking a sewage pipe up to every speaker in America for years by the time this had come out. Punk was necessary because of "Come Sail Away." So that would be the only other redeeming trait it has. Is I don't know if punk sticks, or I don't know if wow, wrong word, but I don't know if punk really hangs around and makes as big an impact without people suffering under Dennis DeYoung. I just don't think it's possible.
Okay. Yeah. I yeah, very much made punk a necessary thing.
For sure. All right, we got a winner. Renegade and "Come Sail Away." What next, sir? What next?
Oh, and what next indeed? Okay, so we've pretty much shot our wad, both of us, even though
Yeah,
we
big
weren't
drop off.
yeah,
Big drop off.
we weren't going for the same wad, but we both shot it.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I think from here there's a million different places that are equally viable, if viable is the correct word. I'm
Foul.
just right. I'm gonna go with too much time on my hands.
A double shot of Tommy Shaw. Damn. Because okay, now we're deep enough in. Both of yours were on my list. This is the closest. I guess we're both. Our the sight lines join at the horizon here. I I think there's no way to build this list without an over representation of Tommy Shaw, and you've pretty much done that single handedly. So I can't argue with the logic. And I think what it really speaks to here is we are desperately trying to avoid Dennis DeYoung ballads. If you think of how many records they sold and how many of those records were ballads, the fact that we're 3 into the list and 1 isn't on there it could only be an aversion to the ballad. So I applaud you in many ways here. Tommy Shaw is the only way to go. Staying away from the ballads is the only way to go. And I think you represented yourself about as well as you can.
Yeah.
The keyboards are the cheesiest I think they've ever had, though.
Oh yeah. Well, there's a lot of cheesy keyboards strewn throughout their catalog. It's a go-to theme, cheesy keyboards for Styx. And by the way,
yep.
I think appropriately they're named after a river in hell.
Yes, this might be more like the sewage output in hell. You've really put me in a terrible situation, and I can't risk.
I didn't. They did.
Yeah, that's true. I can't risk not getting any of that sweet Tommy Shaw action. But if we put 3 Tommy Shaw records in the top 4, is this listenable? Like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, I can't ask you overtly to just be a gentleman and leave me. There's really only one Tommy Shaw one left. What's best for me here is to try to slip another Dennis DeYoung in, because you're just going to go for the Tommy Shaw thing. But the Dennis DeYoung stuff that's left is so offensive. I'm going to appeal to your better angels, sir, and I'm going to say I could have taken Blue Collar Man, but I'm not going to, because that puts a lot, that really front loads the Tommy Shaw. I'm taking one for the team here. I'm going to try to slot a tolerable Dennis DeYoung song in. I if you want to leave Blue Collar Man for me, I'll respect you. But if you find that you can't, I'll partially respect you. I'm going to slot in, after too much time on my hands, from the Equinox album in 1975, Lorelei.
Okay.
More cheesy synths. It's the only thing I think is really redeeming about it. Is if you love the old analog synths and you're looking for the Cheese Master 5000, set on stun, the opening of Lorelei, I think, is about as good as that's going to get.
Yeah, Lorelei was a contingency for me. That was number. Can you believe I had a list of 9? I did, and Lorelei was number 9. So
all right, so good. I had to try to get a Dennis DeYoung one in there just to keep continuity, on the off chance that all you've got left is Blue Collar Man. It's yours if you want it.
So yeah, Blue Collar Man was number 3 on my list. So I do have to take it with my third pick. So that means I've even though I didn't come away with Come Sail Away, I did end up still with my number 3 pick.
And you got all the Tommy Shaw.
That's right. It was, in an ideal world, it would have been Renegade, Come Sail Away, and Blue Collar Man, but instead it's what I got.
Well, I can't argue with the quality of the choice, because the Tommy Shaw stuff is easily the most tolerable subgenre in the Styx catalog. Tommy Shaw singles really are the only reputable Styx subgenre, and you really cleaned out the cabinets. So
yeah, in the inner struggle within the band Styx,
Tommy
Shaw is the victor.
You realize that this basically leaves nothing. So at this point, we pretty much have to choose either some pretentious prog shit.
Oh yeah.
Or Mr. Roboto, or a ballad.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no way we're going to be able to get through this without at least one ballad going on there. So I looked and I tried to find one that if I was told I had to listen to it, like, I wouldn't have reflexive pain. And it's from Styx 2. It's Lady. It's an abomination. It's transgressive in ways that aren't interesting. And The only thing I can say is it does have an incredible use of either finger symbols or a triangle. And like it sounds like like a tea kettle, like a steam whistle or something. I don't know how to explain it, but the keyboard settings are so high and shrill that they do represent sort of a technological achievement. So behind after Blue Collar Man, I'm putting Lady. Uh, the other benefit of putting Lady on here is I believe Styx had signed to a really small indie at the time. The indie was called Wooden Nickel Records, and I believe Nickel Records ripped Styx off. So I want to celebrate that also by making sure that there's more streaming of Styx Lady that none of them will get paid for. There you go.
Okay. All right. So you're supporting Wooden Nickel Records is what you're doing.
Yeah, the bad contract signed by Dennis DeYoung. I want him deprived of all of that sweet wooden nickel money, and so I'm gonna say big ups and let's go with Lady.
You know what though? It's never going to matter to them because they'll be able to tour for the rest of their lives, and that's never going to stop. Like there's always going to be a market for Styx Live somehow.
The world is cruel and makes no sense.
The world is a vampire, as another Chicago musician once said.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, yeah, Chicago music of that type does make me ashamed to be white. All right, we're getting down to the dregs of the dregs
Hey,
of the dregs.
but okay. So another thing, since we're going back to the Chicago aspect of this, I will vouch for Liz Fair, at least pre-sellout,
Yep.
and Veruca Salt. So
You can't fight the Seether. That is true. And
mm,
I do think that the industrial stuff on Wax Trax Records was interesting. Uh,
yeah,
so there,
and
like
plus
ministry records were good.
Wilco is certainly a Chicago band, so
Yeah,
there's that as
yeah.
well.
I'll grant that, but like the biggest selling records out of the city of Chicago are probably still have either Peter Cetera or Dennis DeYoung singing them. And frankly, on that basis alone, another fire is probably deserved.
Yeah. I imagine there's another band that we're forgetting about in Chicago history.
You're
Uh,
being an optimist, but okay, sure,
but
whatever you have to tell yourself.
really, outside of Wilco, and if Cheap Trick is considered Rockford as opposed to Chicago, then I'm not going to put up too much of a fight.
Yeah, I mean, Chess Records is enough to make Chicago's history solid forever. Louis Armstrong came through here, so Chess Records redeems Chicago, but it's working. It's working against a lot of terrible music.
Yeah. Yeah, per capita, Chicago should be doing a lot better, or should have done a lot better.
Right.
All right. Well, what am I going to do with pick number 4? Hmm.
It's really rough. It gets
Yeah.
really rough.
I guess this is not. I'm definitely not going to be able to pull out a plum at this point, so I'm just going to go with fooling yourself. Because that's what I would be doing if I thought that I was going to pull out a gem.
Which album is Fooling Yourself on, sir?
Let me see. It is from the
Grand
Grand Illusion.
All right, so I that's what I suspected. The song "The Grand Illusion" I think was a single. "Fooling Yourself" was a single. "Come
And
Sail
it's
Away."
another Tommy Shaw song too. So I'm just I'm 4 for 4 on Tommy Shaw.
But I don't
I'm
think it's
bullish.
an accident that you went last with that one because
Uh,
the cheesy synths at the beginning of it. It's really Tommy Shaw's most cheesy synth
uh,
array. That's brutal.
yeah, it's very much Emerson, Lake, and Styx.
Oh, no, the worst of everything. Um, I don't think I can dispute this, but like you basically chose a self-defense line there. You took a line of self-defense, which is you basically You're not carrying any of the heavyweight, which is the Dennis DeYoung catalog. You're basically refusing to take on the Dennis DeYoung burden. You're leaving that to me because you basically skimmed the cream out. You basically got relegated. Too much time on my hands. Blue Collar Man and Fooling Yourself. I mean,
anything with a pulse, really. Anything with a pulse is what I've come away with.
okay.
Except for Come Sail Away. Come Sail Away was strong.
Right. Well, you've left me nothing. Wow. All right, I'm just gonna do. I'm gonna cross the streams, and I'm gonna be as transgressive as I can, and I'm gonna pick the most offensive thing on the board, because I think it has some novelty value, and I think it's such a study in what not to do that it has anthropological value. I'm gonna pick Mr. Roboto.
I knew from the description exactly what. Like you basically said novelty, and I knew what you're going to pick.
I don't think there's any way around Mr. Roboto.
Yeah.
I just don't think. Yeah, I don't think you could.
One of us had to take it for sure.
Yeah, the deed is done, sir. The dream is gone. Oh no! So wait, that's only 8. We each have to do one more.
Yep, that's right.
All right. Well, no chance that there's nothing left for you to get from Tommy Shaw. This is really the moment where we see what you're made of.
Yeah, let me see what I'm made of here. You're right. You're right. I don't. Yeah, I've exhausted everything on my list except for one. So I'm just going to go full Emerson, Lake and Styx with their version of Carnival 9 and the Grand Illusion.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, the real estate here is real tight. Mm-hmm. At least giving it the Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and lends a little bit of legitimacy to it. I mean, that song, it was a hit. Like, it was an FM hit. It was like, you know what I mean? Like, at the time where they had songs on the ballads were on the AM side, FM radio was still playing stuff like Grand Illusion. It's forgivable given the context, but I don't even think Styx fans want to tell other people that they're going home to listen to the Grand Illusion.
No, but I'm just glad I didn't have to go off my list at all. I don't know where I would have gone if I would have had to go off my list.
Well, you made it to the end, and you did take enough of all of my Tommy Shaw was taken by you. You haven't really left me any alternative, but I feel like Mr. Roboto is so taboo that I basically have the freedom to just torch the whole damn thing. Literally just scorched earth, Satan running loose, and just doing his business. So like
dogs and cats living together.
That's right. What's to stop me here from just, because I suppose I could pick like Love is a Ritual, because I think that was the Glenn Burtnick singing as sort of Tommy Shaw adjacent, and just call it a night. But I'm bitter. I'm angry. And I want the world to feel my wrath. And so since Mr. Roboto's already up there, the only thing I could think of to really... There's 2 super offensive songs here that are in contention. I'm just going to wind this up. I'm going to put the most offensive thing on here. And it's The Best of Times. I don't think anyone is left standing by the time that ends. It comes from Paradise Theater, I believe, which is one of the worst records ever made that sold. It has almost no redeeming traits that I can think of. So yeah, I might as well burn the whole fucking thing down on the way out the door. Best of Times, there you go. Suck it.
Yeah, the ironically titled.
That is so true. But that record sold so many copies. Like we did pretty good here. We did not fall. The only one real stinker ballad. There's 2 stinkers ballads. Because I can't choose Rockin' the Paradise. I can't choose Sweet Madam Blue. I can't choose Snowblind. Those things are those are like those are like offenses. Those should have been covered by like the Red Cross like war guidelines. Like it's it's really offensive stuff. We did the best we could. I've learned my lesson. I don't ever want to hear this shit again.
Yeah, I'm with you, except for maybe Renegade.
Do you have a pick for next week for the Banality Draft? Have you thought this through?
I don't know if I want to say it until I've committed to it. I'm thinking Bon Jovi.
Mm.
I think it might be Bon Jovi.
You know, I can. There are a couple of Bon Jovi songs that I've chosen to listen to. Not often, but there's enough that I think we can get through it. But they're definitely practically the definition of banality.
Yeah, and it is a change of pace anyway from Styx. It's going to give us a little variety.
Yeah, we're going. Is it fair to call them hair metal? Is
I
it
don't
fair to
know.
call them metal?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think they're more just rock,
They're a hair band.
and I think you have to say it that way. You just say rock. That's what they are, or were,
Rock.
or is.
Well, I'll avoiding. It's going to be very similar to this week's in the sense that tiptoeing around the ballads is going to be the where the art and skill comes in. Getting that done without overwhelmingly dipping into the ballad tag is going to be real work. And
You're right.
yeah, so being able to put something tolerable together that is not a ballad fest is going to test our metal, and it was tested. I'm pleased with our work.
But not our heavy metal.
That is true. Well, our harder rock. That's really what's being tested is the harder rock. I think I want to apologize for Styx. That was a bridge too far. We did the best we could, and I think we put together about the only respectable, decent list that you can.
Yeah, probably needed to be a 6-song list.
Yeah, I'm going to try harder next time, and I'm going to. And again, I'll be recording the Bon Jovi episode from New Jersey. So there again, there's something serendipitous there. I want to thank you for that.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to figure out where you're traveling to after that.
Yeah, boy, we're not giving many people much to look forward to. I'll try to pick well.
So maybe something in the Jersey water will give you the edge in the next one.
Jersey is a punchline to many many jokes. But if we were to do a geographic bucket, you can't lump New Jersey in with New York. New York on its own is New York. New Jersey, I think, punches above its weight.
Sure. Well, you start off big with the boss.
Yeah, the Isley Brothers come from there.
Yeah.
Bon Jovi comes from there. And Tom Waits' Jersey Girl is one of the greatest songs ever written, I think, in the popular era.
Titus Andronicus is kind of Brooklyn via New Jersey.
Sure,
Yola Tango.
Frank Sinatra.
Ted Leo.
Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons.
Well,
yeah, all right, but they in their own way. In their own way. I'm still going to keep pushing this idea that we need to do a geography bracket come March Madness time, but we'll figure it out. Until then, we've got enough on our plate. We have to figure out how to navigate the Bon Jovi jungle.
All right. Yeah. Challenge accepted.
See you then. Lovely.